What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and Eminem has dropped another surprise album. But before we get into that, be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW. A link is in the description below for both. Eminem has officially dropped his 11th album. Yes, he's 11 albums in, and this is something that we were expecting. When I made my previous videos with Nick Cannon and Eminem, I was talking about how Hits Daily Double mentioned that a big artist was eventually going to drop an album. They missed the date on when it was, but I knew it was going to be something involving Eminem because of the various things that I saw. Well, it's official. His 11th album is dropped, and it's called Music to Be Murdered By. And when this album dropped, I didn't know what I was expecting. It is a 20-track album. Technically, it's 17 tracks because 3 of the tracks on there are just skits. So I'm going to go over most of the tracks, not every single one, because that's just going to take forever, and I don't do album reviews. I just like to talk about certain tracks that I like and certain topics that Eminem is talking about. So let's immediately jump into it. The first intro track is called Premonition, and this is easily my favorite track on the whole album. And the great thing about this track is Dr. Dre had a hand in producing this track. Like I've always said, and like I'll always say, Dr. Dre and Eminem are like peanut butter and jelly. They constantly have to work because the music that comes out is amazing. Whenever Eminem sways away from that, the albums become a lot worse. So let's get into the first verse. He said, "They said my last album I sounded bitter. No, I sound like a spitter who 90% of these hypocrites are trying to get rid of. But why would I get a chip on my shoulder? I was considered one time as the illest. Bitch, I'm still as fly as your zipper. True, I just get richer, but if I was ever about Skrilla, then I would have quit a long motherfucking time ago. Bitch, shut the fuck up. I should go say that shit to Tech 9 or the Jigga. Nobody said shit about 2 Chainz as long as he's been here. Shit. No wonder you're mad. Now I'm just looking at them plaques. Count them." So these last few lines are actually very true. To me, I've always reiterated that Eminem gets a lot of shit for rapping still because he's still selling records. If he fell off and was still making music, people wouldn't really care as much. They wouldn't give him as much shit because, hey, he's not dominating the charts anymore. But the fact that Eminem has been rapping since 1999, that's basically when his first album came out. I know he didn't start actually rapping that year, but that's when he actually came into the industry and dropped an album. So he's basically been doing this for 3 decades now, 3 different decades, and is now entering the 4th decade with an album immediately, which is probably going to do insane numbers. He's saying he's only getting backlash because he's getting plaques and getting #1s off this. But 2 Chainz has been doing this shit for a while. As you guys know, 2 Chainz used to be named Titty Boy. He renamed himself, remarketed himself, and now he's even in his 40s still making music, but it doesn't seem like people are giving 2 Chainz as much shit as Eminem. Continuing on, he says, "I'm LL Cool J, bigger and deafer, that's how come. I sell like 4 mil when I put out a bad album. Revival flopped, came back, and I scared the crap out of them. But Rolling Stone stars, I get 2.5 out of 5, and I'll laugh out loud because that's what they gave bad back in the day, which actually made me not feel as bad now because if it happened to James, it can happen to Shady. They do the same shit to Brady. More people hate me than love me. This game will make you go crazy." So what Eminem is talking about here is that Revival flopped. It did worse than Kamikaze, but Rolling Stone gave Revival, the album that a lot of people hated, better rating than Kamikaze. They gave it a 3.5 out of 5, while they gave Kamikaze a 2.5 out of 5. And Eminem in these lines is saying, it just doesn't make sense to me. Kamikaze, everyone agrees, is a better album. But what I say to Eminem, what I say to a lot of people is who gives a shit what these media outlets and magazine places and all these other things give album reviews. Who cares? I never judge an album based off an album review. I never judge an album on if it won a Grammy. I always listen to it for myself and give my own opinion. You guys should do the exact same. Don't listen to me. Do not listen to anybody that reviews an album and says it's garbage, and you don't listen to it because that person said it's garbage. These places are usually wrong. I mean, as you guys can see here, Rolling Stone is clearly in the wrong. They gave Revival a better review than Kamikaze, and everyone that I know agrees that Kamikaze is a way better album than Revival. So he compares himself to LL Cool J and says, they gave his album bad a worse review. And he's like, if it could happen to him, who's a legend, it can happen to me. And he says it happens to people like Tom Brady, who have been on top in the sports world. And the same thing happens to LeBron. The same things happen to Floyd Mayweather. Basically, anybody that's been on top forever gets hate, gets criticized a lot more because they just keep winning. But before we dive into the next part of this video, I would like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. They have an insane amount of classes from design, business, music, and more. There's over 30,000 classes to explore. Since we've entered the new year of 2020, I wanted to kick it off by learning some new skills that will help me with the documentaries that I make for you guys on the Who Really Won series. I'm always looking to make my documentaries better and better to match that of a professional documentary, like something that you see on Netflix. So the class that I decided to take is in the category of music. The class is called Learn How to Mix Music with Young Guru. Young Guru is a legendary engineer. He's worked on basically every single Jay-Z album. So to learn from him is something that you don't get to do often. And the greatest thing that I like about Skillshare is that it's incredibly affordable. At less than $10 a month for a membership, you won't need to take out a costly loan to learn. And right now, the best thing is Skillshare is offering 2 months of membership completely free when you click on the link in the description. So there's literally nothing to lose here, guys. So sign up today and make 2020 the year you explore new skills and strengthen your passions with Skillshare. Continuing on, he says, once I was played in rotation at every radio station. They said I'm lyrically amazing, but I have nothing to say. But then when I put out Revival and I had something to say, they said they hated the Awake Me. I lose the rage, I'm too tame. I get it back, they say I'm too angry. I need to get me some Dre beats, no, I should hook up with Tay Keith. Fans keep on pulling me one way, haters pull me in another. Got more hooks in me than Sway Lee. So in these lines, he's basically saying it's damned if you do and damned if you don't, which is true for almost anyone that's on top. But here's the part that I don't agree with. He said when I put out Revival and had something to say, they said that they hated the Awake Me, and that's simply not true. That's not the reason why I disliked Revival. It was not because Eminem was a woke rapper speaking on current topics and political things. I always praised Revival for its lyrics and for its actual content in the lyrics. The things that I disliked was the execution of that. So that falls into the production of that, the flow, the delivery, the hooks, and the features were just horrible. I mean, having a bunch of pop stars on it was just bad. We talked about this multiple times, so I feel like Eminem is kind of misinformed or looking at it the wrong way. I like the woke Eminem, and the perfect example is on this actual album. On the track number 8, Darkness, he actually does the same thing he did on Revival, but executed it the right way. This was great production, great hook, great storytelling, and is discussing a current topic in America, which is gun violence and gun control. So it's not that Eminem is woke and that we don't like that. It was just the way it was executed was bad. And on that track, he nailed it perfectly. So I'm not complaining on that end. But then he also says, I lose the rage, I'm too tame, I get it back, they say I'm too angry. Now, when I talk about Eminem, being aggressive on his songs and yelling on them, it's just the flow. It's constantly aggressive and needs to be switched up sometimes. There's no problem with Eminem having anger and pointing out things that he dislikes and stuff like that. Back in the days, he used to do that a lot. He just had different flows, and it didn't sound like he was yelling the whole time. Continuing on, he says, wait, I meant no disrespect. I wasn't dissing Tech, and that was not a shot at 2 Chainz or to Jay-Z. They probably feel the same way because lately, instead of us being credited for longevity and being able to keep it up for this long at this level, we get told we'll never be what we were. Bitch, if I was half as good as I was, I'm still twice as good as you'll ever be. Only way that you're ahead of me alphabetically, because if you diss me, I'm coming after you like the letter V. Killing everything, play this tune, it's your eulogy. It's your funeral, prepare to die. This is music for you to be murdered by. Now, these last few lines right here are my favorite because it's 100% true, and I constantly say this when it comes to anyone that's been on top forever and is a legend. Longevity is something that's extremely hard, so when people can pull off longevity, it's something that anyone has to commend because being on top for so long is just impossible to sustain. I mean, everyone's going to critique you. Everything that you do is going to be compared to what you did previously, and it's just something that comes with being on top for such a long time. Moving forward, let's talk about the second track on the album called Unaccommodating, and it came with a surprise feature from Young M.A. I was surprised these two actually worked well together. Young M.A. is one of my favorite female artists in the game right now, and she did her thing on this track, so I'm glad these two made a track together. But we're going to talk about Eminem's verse on this track because some lines are very interesting. In his verse, he actually sends shots at Machine Gun Kelly. He says, "Better watch for Slim, better get to poppin' when I'm at the top again. I won't topple. I'm giving it to anyone who want to come and get it, and I'm not going to stop. But when they ask me, is the war finished with MGK? Of course it is. I cleanse them of his mortal sins. I'm God, and the Lord forgives even the devil worshippers. I'm moving on, but you know your scrupulous are gone when you're born with Lucifer's horns." In these lines, he's basically saying, I finished MGK. It's over with. I'm never going to entertain it again. Machine Gun Kelly essentially said the same thing in an interview in 2019. He said he's never going to play Rap Devil at a concert ever again. So they both moved on from it and are finished with it. And Eminem is referring to Machine Gun Kelly as the devil in these lines because, as you guys know, his title track was called Rap Devil, and Eminem previously would call himself Rap God. He even has a track called Rap God. So he's saying he cleansed them. He's never going to attack them again. On the next track, You Gon' Learn with Royce da 5'9" and White Gold. This is also one of my favorite tracks on the album. He addresses T Grizzley. For those of you that don't know, T Grizzley actually dissed Eminem in a track that he released, and Eminem finally responds to him on this track by dissing him back. Towards the end of his verse, he says, "I am too volatile and too grisly to bear. Yeah, shit is getting to where I can barely even sit in a chair. I bust my ass for this shit, and I swear it ain't even worth dissing someone so offbeat that they can't even figure out where their words should hit the kick and snare." T Grizzly's diss was on a track called No Talkin', and a project he released in the summer of 2019. On the track, he said, "Had to quit fucking with dog, he feminine. I run Detroit guys talking about Eminem. Talking that shit, I kill you, him, and him. I made an M, then I made an M again. Slow down, check the score, guy, blowout." T Grizzley is from Detroit just like Eminem, so why he dissed him, I don't know why. Maybe because Eminem hasn't done a track with him yet and has done tracks with other artists, so he probably feels some type of way, but he got that response that he wanted from Eminem. Continuing on, I'm going to skip a few tracks and talk about the 8th track, Darkness. I talked about it a little bit earlier in this video, but like I said previously, this is how Revival should have sounded. If more of the tracks sounded like this, Revival would have been a better album. And shout out to Royce da 5'9" for producing this track. He completely killed it. You guys should also check out the music video for this track because it paints a better picture of what Eminem intended for this. Fast forwarding to track number 10 called Yeah Yeah with Royce da 5'9" and Black Thought. This is also one of my favorite tracks on the album. Skipping to Eminem's verse, he mentions Machine Gun Kelly once again. He says, "I'm a sight to see, but you can see from the ring I'm wearing. Me in this game, we got married already. Had a prenup ready, fucked on her, should have seen her belly. She barely was 3 months pregnant. Bitch had it, gave me a baby. We named it Machine Gun Kelly." What he's saying in this is obviously he birthed Machine Gun Kelly. His whole style, his whole flow came from him. And as we know on Killshot, he mentioned that various times that Machine Gun Kelly is his son. Now let's skip to track number 16 with Anderson called Lock It Up. On verse 2, Eminem decides to take a quick jab at Joe Budden. He says, "I just let the poker chips fall, but they were supposed to fit. Now those days are over, scrapping changes in sofas. Trying to save at Kroger, so why would I give a fuck about backstabbing Trader Joe for?" As you guys know, Eminem has felt like Joe Budden has betrayed him because of the harsh reviews that he's given to Eminem, and all Eminem has done is tried to help his career with Slaughterhouse to try to make them a household name, and this is just a play on words for Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store outlet, and Kroger. Now let's talk about my next favorite track on the album called No Regrets, featuring Don Toliver. And I love tracks when Eminem reflects on his career and kind of reveals things that we don't know about back in the past. But the most interesting part about this track is verse 2 from Eminem, because he ends up taking some more shots at Machine Gun Kelly. He even takes some shots at Nick Cannon. and ends up apologizing to Tyler, the Creator, and Earl. He starts out the second verse saying, "All the hate, can't tell exactly where it stems from, but it's happening again, huh? Y'all used to be in my corner, now you just backed me in one. Innocent bystanders, I'm bound to hit some. For some adversaries, I carry big guns. So some targets will get the kill shot, some I barely nicked them." What I like about these bars is that Eminem is admitting that he actually had to try when it comes to the Machine Gun Kelly battle. He said, "For some adversaries, I carry big guns," meaning he actually had to bring out the big guns when it comes to dissing Machine Gun Kelly with the kill shot track. And then he just said the barely nicked them line is saying, "Hey, I don't even care too much about the Nick Cannon problem, and I just barely even talked about it." All he did was basically send one tweet out about it and never made a diss track. Continuing on, he says, "Misplacing my anger enough to give Earl and Tyler, the Creator, the brunt. Should have never made a response to the disdain for the fake ones. Them traitorous punks, cause snakes are just cunts." In these lines, he's basically apologizing to Earl and Tyler, the Creator, because if you guys remember in Kamikaze, he dissed both of them. Then in his interview with Sway for the Kamikaze album, he apologized to Tyler for taking it so far. And if you guys don't remember, Tyler and Earl have basically said that Eminem fell off, so on and so forth. What a lot of people said at that time when he was releasing those albums like Revival and stuff. Then towards the end of this verse, he says, "They talk about my daughters hoping I fly off the handle, cause my first thought is to trample and write 1,000 bars." Obviously, if you mention Eminem's daughter, most of the time he responds to you. But when he said this in this track, I feel like he was aiming this mainly towards Nick Cannon, because that's all Nick Cannon was doing when he was dissing him these past couple of weeks, is mentioning Eminem's daughters. And that's the only way that Nick Cannon probably felt like he could actually get Eminem to respond. But it's clear in these lines he's saying, yeah, you can mention her, but I'm not just going to go crazy and write 1,000 bars to some nobody. Now let's talk about the last full track on the album, which is track number 19, called I Will, and it features everyone in the slaughterhouse besides one person, and as you guys can guess, that's Joe Budden, and that's just Eminem's way of smacking him in the face one more time. But let's skip to Eminem's verse, because he ends up taking some shots at Lord Jamar. He says, "Enter my house of whores with 1,000 floors. Got a crown of thorns, but it won't fit around the horns. But I'm gonna keep it a buck like a dollar store. I'm more than you bargained for, and I am far more worse than a 40-some bar Lord Jamar verse. Nothing means more than respect, so when I curse, you could say I swore to protect. My image I have zero time or regard for. I never was been claiming rap when it's not yours. If it was anyone's house, G-Rap and Rakim would be having you mop floors. Run DMC would be having you cleaning sinks. Yeah, your group was off the chain, but you were the weakest link. Rest of these youngins of mine, time to start throwing some shade. This time I'm shutting the blinds, cause when I'm looking at y'all, shit, it's no wonder why I need a visor, cause y'all are just suns in my eyes." These bars hit insanely hard. To compare his group to the legendary groups of his time at that time, and then to say that you're the weakest link in your group, and then to sun all the newer generation and say you guys are just copying me and my flow and my style, you guys are just sons to me. It was just perfect execution on Eminem's side. But that's it for most of this album. I'm currently enjoying the album a lot right now. Like I said, my favorite track is the intro track. It's just perfect. The perfect amount of production, the perfect flow, the perfect execution, everything. The bragging that he's doing on there is just amazing. I like it. I love the You Gon' Learn track with Royce the 5'9". I like Darkness. I like Yeah. I like No Regrets and I Will. This album's theme reminds me a lot of the Eminem Show, Encore, and a little bit of Relapse. Those three mixed together is what this album is essentially made of, and all three of those albums I like, so it's not a bad thing. The only two things that I'm complaining about is, one, this album is a little bit too long. He should have cut it down. The sweet spot for me on albums is anywhere between 13 to 16 tracks or 13 to 15 tracks, somewhere around there. The length of Kamikaze was very good, so that's why I really enjoyed that album. It was the perfect length, and it almost came out to be a perfect album. So that's my first complaint with this album. It's not a big deal though. I mean, just one track or two that could have been cut out would have been great. But the second complaint is obviously I'm a 50 Cent fan, so not having an Eminem and 50 Cent track since 2009, yes, 11 years ago, a track with just Eminem and 50 is just insane. These two have great chemistry. I'm surprised they haven't done any tracks together. When 50 Cent was doing interviews for his show Power, he mentioned in various interviews that he recorded quite a few tracks for Eminem's new album. So where did those tracks end up? Are they working on a collab album? I hope so, but it's never going to happen in my eyes. I just hope it does, because where are those tracks going? It seems like they end up in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow realm and never fucking come out anywhere. So bring those tracks out. Stop hiding the Eminem and 50 Cent tracks. I'm very disappointed in 50 Cent not being on this album. Young M.A. makes it on this album, but not 50. That's just disgraceful. So that's my complaint. So Eminem, if you ever run into this video, because I know you go into the YouTube wormhole, please put 50 Cent on your album. Next album, whatever album, next project you got, put 50 Cent on there with some Dr. Dre production so we can reminisce about 2003 and enjoy it. But yeah, that's my only two complaints about this album. With that being said, leave a comment below. I want to know what you guys think about this Eminem album. Is it better than his last effort, which was Kamikaze? What tracks do you like on this album? What tracks you dislike? Do you like the theme of this album? Are you guys happy with the features on this album? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be checking them out. With that being said, if you want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse-mentality. For just $1 a month or more, you can help support this channel further. A link in the description below. Like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe. I do videos like this daily on hip-hop news and much more, so definitely subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at QuakeGW. Like us on Facebook, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.